The gavel came down on the wood block, with a crash, ringing out like thunder in the quiet courtroom. Each breath, each pulse was momentarily suspended. The nation's eyes were all on one person, Kody Brown. Paraded once as patriarch of America's most notorious plural marriage, now relegated to a defendant, bereft of his authority, his charm, and possibly even his reputation. But this was no typical trial. No typical chapter in the Sister Wives saga. This was the start of what would become the season 20 shocker. The introduction of a mysterious fifth wife who asserted not only sole custody of her children, but also legal rights to Kody's entire estate. And in that moment, as murmurs spread through the crowded gallery, you could sense it, something more sinister was afoot. This was no longer simply about love, or jealousy, or shattered vows. This was about power, about legacy, about who would be etched in the annals of history as the real heir to Kody Brown's broken kingdom. But what they didn't know was that the following weeks within these courtroom walls would lay bare secrets, so dynamite, so heart-wrenching, that even the most devoted Sister Wives viewers wouldn't be able to avert their eyes. Kody sat tense at the defendant's table, his golden locks dulled beneath the unforgiving fluorescent lighting. His countenance, painted bold and confident for the cameras, now indicated fissures, anger, terror, perhaps regret. Robyn sat next to him, grasping tissues, her mascara already smeared. Across the aisle, Christine, Janelle, and Meri shared glances that resonated louder than words. And then, there she was. The woman no one expected. A person who emerged from the darkness of secrecy into the blinding glare of the trial. Kody's so-called fifth wife. Her name, still spoken in a hushed forbidden incantation. Her presence, unmovable, magnetic. She wasn't here for fame. She wasn't here for attention. She was here to win. And her terms? Scandalous. Exclusive rights to children Kody barely showed in public, and legal status as the rightful owner of his assets. Gasps echoed through the courtroom when her lawyer read the opening statement. Mr. Brown has shunned his responsibilities, manipulated his wives, and hidden the existence of my client for far too long. Today, justice at last will descend upon her, and on the children. Kody's jaw clenched. Robyn's hand fell from his. Christine's lips curled up in a barely perceptible smile, as if she'd been anticipating this tempest's arrival. The crowd sensed it. This was not merely another dysfunctional family brawl. This was war. And here's the part no one expected. Each twist, each betrayal, each tear spilled in this trial would compel the world to ask just one question. Who was Kody Brown, really? Because behind the cameras, behind the carefully constructed image of a plural family struggling to make it work, was a man ensnared in lies, money scams, and broken promises he never intended to keep. The fifth wife wasn't merely a woman with a grievance. She was a reminder of everything he attempted to bury. And now, for millions to see, it was clawing its way back to the surface. The walls of the courtroom appeared to draw in closer with each minute. The judge, pinched and unbending, had no hesitation in reminding both sides that this was not a TV drama, but a battlefield of law. But for those watching at home, for the supporters who had been watching the Browns since more than a decade ago, it was impossible not to blur reality with spectacle. This was the culmination of years of tension, betrayal, and divorce. But just when you think things can't get worse, believe me, you haven't seen anything yet. The rumors intensified. Was this woman really Kody's fifth wife? Or was she a pawn in someone's game? Did Robyn have a clue? Had Christine, Janelle, or Meri had a suspicion about her? Or was Kody, the self-proclaimed leader of his family, finally outmaneuvered at his own game? In the front row of the gallery, flashes lit up, journalists wrote madly, and fans covered their mouths in awe. Deep down, inside you, you couldn't help but get a strange jolt. After all those years of seeing Kody avoid responsibility, after all those seasons of seeing his wives break down under his rule, justice, or at least pandemonium, finally came knocking. And as the mysterious woman lifted her chin and stared directly into Kody's eyes, the air in the courtroom turned electric. Her voice, steady and cold, cut through the silence. I'm not here to be another wife in your story, Kody. I'm here to end it. The ensuing gasp was collective. Even the judge's gavel couldn't muffle the tidal wave of shock that swept over the room. For once in a long while, Kody seemed tiny, fragile, almost shattered. But this was just the start, because what she proceeded to reveal next would rock not only the courtroom, but the entire Brown legacy to its foundations. And you, yes, you viewing right now, are going to see the downfall of a family dynasty like you never thought possible. The custody wars, the heir wars, the wives' betrayal, and the explosive secrets that will leave even Kody's most die-hard supporters agog. So grab some popcorn, because this is not another Sister Wives episode. This is season 20's greatest shocker. And believe me, you won't know how it ends. Before we get started, I have to ask, what do you think? Will Kody Brown make it through this trial? Or is this the point where his whole empire comes crumbling down? Leave your thoughts in the comments, because this courtroom drama is far from over. The courtroom buzzes like a machine struggling not to collapse. Fluorescent lights hum, a coughing ceiling vent exhales cool air, and the smell of aged paper and stale coffee lingers low as if the room itself has been awake all night. Kody Brown perches in the defendant's chair, shoulders squared but unsteady, a man struggling to appear stone while the floor moves. The murmur behind him undulates, camera shudders, hushed reporters, fans who have followed this family for years huddled with notebooks and phones. Across the aisle, Robyn dabs the rim of her eye with a tissue, and feigns the mascara smear is accidental. Christine presses her lips together, until they go white. Janelle scribbles and retypes a single sentence over and over in a leather-bound notebook. Meri looks down at her clasped hands as if she can press herself into silence. Then the door slides open on a gentle metallic creak and a woman walks through, back straight, calm, holding a folder the color of a bruise. They refer to her as the fifth wife. No one says her name at first. Names are power here. She glides to the plaintiff's table, sets the folder down without a sound, and meets the judge's eye as if they're old acquaintances. The judge, crisp black robe, iron gray hair, the sort of gaze that cools boiling water, leans forward. Counsel will begin with your opening, and I'll remind both parties, this is a court of law, not a soundstage. The lawyer for the fifth wife stands up, mid-40s, navy blue suit, voice as smooth as a clean shave. Your Honor, we will demonstrate that Mr. Brown vowed legal protection and acknowledgement to my client in a binding marriage. He kept a secret home with her and their kids. He hid assets in trusts and accounts created to keep them hidden. We are here asking for sole custody and heir designation on the express words and signed instructions of Mr. Brown. No fuss, no drama. She turns one sheet, shows a black and white photo, Kody's head bent, a flash of ring on his hand outside a plain-clad clerk's office years back. The date imprinted in the corner. Gasps. Robyn's tissue freezes halfway to her face. Kody does not glance back at the picture. He already knows what it is. That's what his expression indicates. Anyway, chin jutting, eyes not blinking nearly enough. A man hurrying through the explanations so rapidly they become a blur. His lawyer, slick, streamlined, rises to object. Your Honor? Inflammatory and misleading. The defense will demonstrate that those photographs are out of context. There is no legal marriage, no union acknowledged, nothing that represents heir status. But context is the specter that hovers alongside all of us now. It's in the two beat-up chairs by the rear wall, in the hushed syllable Christine allows to escape when she catches sight of that ring. Years of context, neatly piled. Stay by my side. Because the next paper gliding across that smooth wood doesn't merely raise an eyebrow. It threatens the very ground on which the next in line inherits it all. A paper moves from the plaintiff's table to the deputy clerk, a copy of a marriage license, state seal embossed, lines filled in a narrow, careful hand. The fifth wife doesn't look at it. She looks at Kody, not daring him, measuring him. The judge nods to the defense. You'll have your chance to challenge authenticity. For now, this is a proffer, not an admission. The sound inside the room tilts. The defense lawyer stands and addresses the judge in the composure of a surgeon. Your Honor, the record will reveal this license was never filed, never solemnized according to the law of this state. Even if it was taken somewhere else, it does not grant the rights asserted. What we have are romantic theatrics at best, extortion at worst. The word hangs in the air like a razor. Eyes dart from the lawyer to the woman who just sat there without flinching. She puts her hands on the table, fingers apart, the way you find your balance before you say something that rearranges things. He told me, she begins, and even though she's not testifying yet, the judge lets her go on, perhaps because the room needs to hear it. He said, "You are my legacy. Our kids will bear the name that counts." He promised to get the paperwork. I trusted him because that's what you do when a man looks at you and swears on the future. The judge tilts a warning. "Counsel, keep your client to the rules." Her lawyer intervenes, voice steady. "We'll bring witnesses, Your Honor. But to set up what's at stake, Mr. Brown signed a directive leaving my client's children as heirs to certain property. Today we settle custody. In due course, the right of inheritance. We don't confuse TV with will." From the gallery, a whir of a camera shutter clicks like a cicada. Robyn breathes small, fast sips. Christine allows her face to shift. Just a degree? Relief? No. Something colder. Recognition. Janelle writes, underlines, writes once more. Meri lifts her head and observes the woman who refuses to look away from Kody's eyes. If that certificate stands, it won't just humiliate him. It will blow a hole right through his defense and put his legacy on the line. The judge requests the first witness, a notary who attests to the signatures, the date, the little desk with the creaking drawer where the stamp resides. Not glamorous, and that's the very reason it sticks. Mundane details create believable images. The notary's recollection is sharp. He was fussy about the words. "See that it reads successor, not beneficiary," he said to me. Defense protests, asks the notary to question her memory, reminds the judge of time passing. The judge sanctions it for the time being, warning of reliability to be considered. On the second bench, a woman who has been following Sister Wives since the pilot tightens her friend's arm between crescents. Years worth of scenes, family holiday meals, road trips, promises dissolving, flash and disappear in these fluorescents. The myth engulfed the actual family years ago. Now the actual family is devouring the myth. A flash of warmth in Kody's eyes when he finally addresses his lawyer. A crackle of whisper. An upturned palm in a Y. It's not the old-time rage, staged for cameras. It's leaner, more starved. He wants something, escape valve, a shifting of the board. The defense lawyer stands and plays a card. "Your Honor, even if the court will consider these salacious accusations, custody hangs or falls on the children's lives, not on financial documents. We will demonstrate Mr. Brown has been there, supportive, consistent. It falls with the weight of a challenge." The fifth wife's cue, and she opens her folder to the second separator. School attendance slips, doctor appointments, little milestone photographs. The camera captures one, a child at a library table, the fifth wife's hand on a small shoulder, an empty chair beside them. It is not incriminating in a court of law. It is incriminating on a human level. And sometimes a chair speaks louder than an affidavit. You can feel the room lean, because the question everyone avoids is whether a secret vow turned into a secret heir. And if so, who gets written into the story that outlives them all? The judge straightens, refocuses the room. "We're going to hear from your client, briefly under oath, for foundation only. Counsel, keep it tight." The bailiff approaches with a worn Bible and a practiced monotone. The fifth wife lifts her right hand, voice firm on the oath. She recites the first fragments, laconic and accurate. An apartment rented under an LLC. The defense will subsequently swear is in no way associated with Kody. Payments corresponding to dates on a company calendar. A scribbled-out schedule, plotting nights and weeks that never aired. Her eyes are unmoistened. The lie she's speaking is one she's spoken to herself 100 times already, so it wouldn't tremble as much today. She paints a night in the desert, not a scene in the show, a true picture, in the type of wind that picks up dust against your ankles. A lantern glowed in a circle of light-colored dirt. He vowed permanence, she insists, and slipped a ring onto her finger, inscribed on the inside band, with a phrase that means everything to couples like them, and nothing to the law, except insofar as the law is extended an invitation in. She possesses the ring. The deputy clerk shines a small evidence bag in the light. The engraving sparkles like a word spoken aloud. The defense seizes. "Miss," the lawyer hesitates, glances down, decides not to utter her last name. "But did you consult with a lawyer when it happened? Did you do anything? Or is all of that symbolic?" She draws an air and exhales it slowly. "I did what he instructed me to do. I trusted the things I couldn't see." Something happens in Kody's face at that last sentence. The jaw clenches, the nostrils flare. Robyn reaches for his forearm, but he doesn't lean. Christine looks down. Janelle's pen stops. Meri's thumb rubs an invisible circle on her knee. An old habit maybe. Right when Kody steadies his mask, the judge says one word. Proceed, and the entire courtroom inhales, bracing for the next strike. The plaintiff's attorney gestures to the side door. A deputy pushes a cart with a metal box on top of it. Bank gray, scuffed edges. The sort of thing that exists under fluorescent lights. Your Honor, she says, this is the safe deposit box of the LLC funding Miss Hale's home. The name is finally spoken. Hale. It lingers in the air. An anchor dropped. In it is a notarized instruction to a family trust. The report employs the term successor. The signature is extremely similar to the defendant's. The lawyer for Kody stands up. We object to foundation. Chain of custody is suspicious. The plaintiff's attorney has the receipts. The bank manager will testify to the rental of the box. The key custody logs. The deputy in attendance at the opening this morning. The judge nods. The deputy hands over a thin folder. The manager, a paper slice voice, verifies the logs. It is routine testimony, but people attend as if the safe deposit room is the center of the tale. Perhaps it is. The envelope within the box is heavy, edges frayed. When it is opened, the room sits forward as if drawn. The judge reads in silence first, head bowed, then hands it on to the clerk to hold out to counsel. We don't read all the words, but we hear the significant ones as the lawyer reads them slowly out loud. This directive, successor custodial control, in the case of dissolution, to be administered consistent with the principles we have agreed. That final line is the one that explodes in the silence, initials that resemble a name. Kody has signed 1,000 times on checks and cards and agreements. Christine's reaction is not triumph. It's a flinch, a wound reopening. Janelle's mouth softens, a grief she didn't know she would feel for something she never had. Meri's eyes shine in a way that is not tears yet. Robyn freezes, no reaching, no blinking. She is waiting for him to fix this, the way people who believe still wait. Forgery, the defense argues, as sharp as steel. And even if it were, a private directive can't trump statutory requirements for custody or inheritance. Not alone. The judge concurs, but it can inform me as to intent. And intent, when it comes to custody, tints everything. If this ledger holds even for 1 hour, the Brown family tree curves into a direction no one intended. And once a tree curves, it never returns the way it was before. The fifth wife closes her eyes for the first time, long enough to settle the quiver at the corner of her mouth. She is not playing to the room. She is fighting, not to cry now, that the paper has been delivered from the box. The attorney requests a momentary recess to ready the next witness, a forensic document examiner. The judge refuses. We keep moving. The beat of this court is momentum. It will destroy anything too delicate to contain a shape. The defense shifts strategy. Your Honor, irrespective of what the paper states, we must discuss the children's lives. My client has obligations to numerous children, and he has fulfilled them. We ask to hear day to day from an impartial professional, and not from a meticulously prepared binder. The judge nods. Guardian ad litem, a woman in a black blazer stands up from the second row. She is someone you never see until she says something, and then you can't picture how you didn't see her. She discusses pickup schedules, homework, evenings when a child was ill, and someone didn't return a call. She doesn't indict, she chronicles. It is worse than indictment somehow. Facts spread out flat. The fifth wife hears her, glass still as. Kody's hand sweeps over a legal pad, draws a square, draws another square within. He whispers to his lawyer, and there is a prayer in the way his lips move. Let this be the turn. The lawyer stands. We'll show Mr. Brown maintained an understood schedule, and that any absences were due to production and family obligations with his legal household. We'll show that Miss Hale sought to isolate him. A murmur crawls across the gallery. The fifth wife's attorney doesn't rise. She reaches into her folder and lifts out a small matte black cell phone in a clear evidence bag. The room changes temperature. Even the vent grows still. Your Honor, she whispers, and somehow that carries further than any bellow. We will tomorrow move to admit an audio file taken by my client. In it, the defendant discusses why the license evades filing, and how the trust should be worded to protect the heir we chose. We will cover chain of custody with a digital forensics expert. For today, we're asking the court to keep this device, seal it, and schedule a time to play it. The lawyer for Kody is already halfway to the podium. Absolutely not. Unauthenticated hearsay. Illegally obtained. It's my phone. The fifth wife says, voice steady. He knew I was recording. He requested the recording. So we remember the plan, he said. It makes a stillness denser than sound. We know what we're looking for from tales like these. We're looking for clean lines and villains as clear as storm clouds. But this room provides nothing but contours and warmth. Each face in this courtroom bears a variation of the same injury. And the question is no longer who began to, it's who halts it before it poisons everything. The judge sighs, rubs out a note, and looks up. The device will be sealed and kept. Both sides will have access for expert examination. We will schedule a special hearing on the audio tomorrow at 9 a.m. She addresses the fifth wife. Ma'am, limit your answers to counsel's questions. No more voluntary speech. The bailiff approaches. The fifth wife hands over the phone. Kody shifts, unable to help it at last. He stands halfway when his attorney pulls on his sleeve. Your Honor, he speaks, his voice lower than the room anticipated. The TV bravado trimmed of its confident veneer to something raw and human. There are things that you can't grasp from a clip. There are promises, family promises. I have lots of children. The judge's gaze doesn't soften, which is why you're here. The bailiff tug-zips the evidence bag. The sound is obscene in its finality. A zipper on a body bag. On a suitcase someone won't unpack again. Cameras click in a staccato burst. A reporter whispers, tomorrow, like the word is a cliff. The judge begins to set conditions and times, but the room is barely hearing it. They're hearing the thing that has not yet happened. It's the future playing silently behind their eyes. Robyn's hand, this time, settles upon Kody's sleeve and he allows it to remain. Christine gazes at the door with a face that is not anger and not forgiveness, something sewn of both. Janelle finally rips the page out of her notebook, folds it in half once, and then twice, edges together, as if order could be forced back with geometry. Meri is the last to make a move. She lifts her chin and turns to the fifth wife, and for an instant they are alone in the room. A bridge no one else can reach. The bailiff spins with the closed phone, and then it does. A glitch, small, inadvertent. The bag against the power button or a loose setting catches. The phone speaker comes to life for a brief, jagged second. Static crackles. A man's voice, unrecognizable, even distorted by plastic, pours half a phrase into the room before anyone can silence it. My real marriage, the one that, the noise stops. The gavel of the judge shatters the silence. Gasp, stand, sit. Apology mumbles from the bailiff. Eyes of the judge are steel. This court will be adjourned at 9 a.m. Tomorrow we will get this done right. And like that, all the truths in this room turn into a cliff edge. And tomorrow is the fall. Morning dawned with a sky the hue of steel, as if the world itself understood the courthouse would be a battlefield that day. Courthouse steps were covered in cameras, their lenses pointing like weapons, starving to capture even the slightest flicker of Kody Brown's face. Fans lined metal barricades, chanting, debating, holding signs, some condemning him as a fraud, others pleading for his redemption. For years, life for this family had been a reality show. But today it was no script, no editing, no redoing, just the hard facts, or whatever could be established within those walls. Within the courtroom, the air was crisp, colder than yesterday. The bailiff demanded order, his voice cutting through conversation, yet it hardly held in check the tempest churning. All eyes moved to the evidence table, where the sealed phone rested like a bomb on a trigger. A compact, black square, but capable of destroying lives, reputations and illusions within seconds. Kody sat tense, jaw locked, shoulders knotted. His golden ringlets, which had once been his trademark, were disheveled as if the gravity of this ordeal had dulled their sparkle. Next to him, Robyn hugged her bag as if it were a shield, her lips mouthing incantations nobody could possibly overhear. Across the aisle, Christine sat staring at the phone, her fingers drumming out a beat of both tension and expectation. Janelle just continued to write in her notebook, though her hand shook every few seconds. Meri just sat, looking not at the phone, not at the judge, but at the fifth wife, Heir. Heir sat, marble carved. No crying, no flashing fear, only determination. She was not here for drama. She was here for vindication. And everyone knew, once that recording came on, there would be no turning back. The judge walked in, robe flowing like darkness over the bench, and the room stood. The gavel came down once, ringing like a drum of destiny. We continue. Bring in the forensic analyst. A gray-clad man of imposing stature entered the stand. His name was Dr. Lansing, a digital forensics practitioner, with credentials that stretched beyond the courtroom's ability to enumerate. His calm voice possessed the assurance of someone accustomed to stripping away deceptions buried in wires and circuits. He laid out the procedure, how the phone was locked, how metadata was recovered, how the recording was authenticated. Every technical term added credibility, cinching the noose around Kody's case. At last, the judge leaned forward. Play the file. The bailiff hit a button, and the room waited with bated breath. Static sounded, then dissipated. Kody's voice dominated the courtroom. Not the boisterous, theatrical Kody of TV, but a gentler, intimate tone. This isn't for them to see. Not yet. You are my true marriage, the one that counts. The others, they were half of the show, half of the facade. But you, your children, this is the future. Gasps ripped through the room. Robyn let her hand fall from Kody's arm. Christine's mouth opened, her control breaking as years of suspicion instantly turned to hard fact. Janelle froze mid-sentence. Meri closed her eyes, as if she had finally heard the thing she'd always dreaded. And Heir? She didn't budge. She just kept staring at him, unwavering. The room was like it had just seen, not a recording, but a confession torn out of his breast. The defense attorney leapt up. Your Honor, context is important. This is selective. We want the whole recording. The one-to-whole recording. The judge held up a hand. The entire file will be heard. The audio resumed. Kody's voice again. If they knew, they'd destroy us. Christine would never forgive me. Janelle would turn. Even Meri? She'd burn the whole house down. That's why this trust, this directive, has to stay hidden until the time is right. When I'm gone, they'll know who the heir really is. The last word hung in the air like smoke. Heir? It was a dagger to the heart of his entire defense. The gallery burst into whispers, reporters frantically scrawling every word. Robyn was so white she looked like she was about to faint. Her knuckles stretched white as she gripped the edge of the table. Christine's face flushed with vindication, her body vibrating silently with rage. Kody pounded his hand on the bench, his mask slipping. It was private, he bellowed, his voice cracking with the strain of fear. It was a moment, not a contract. You don't get it. The judge's gavel boomed. Compose yourself, Mr. Brown. The courtroom witnessed for the first time in years, the judge deposing Kody, a man trapped by his own words. The plaintiff's lawyer rose slowly, relishing the quiet. Your Honor, the defendant has confessed, in his own words, that he regarded my client as his real marriage, his kids, his legacy, and the rest as mere props. This isn't a custody case. This is the dismantling of a man's empire of lies. Kody's lawyer rushed to interrupt, alleging emotional manipulation, but the judge intervened. The court will consider this. Continue. Christine could no longer remain silent. She leaned forward, speaking out without permission. So it was true then. All those years, all that suffering, we were just furniture to you. Her voice broke, and the gallery fell silent. The judge warned her to stay seated. But the damage was done. Her words had already pierced the room. And that was when the fifth wife made her move. She stood, slow and deliberate. Your Honor, I'm ready to testify. The courtroom froze. Even the judge hesitated, studying her face, weighing whether this was theatrics or necessity. Then, with a nod, he allowed it. Heir approached the witness stand, the heels of her shoes clicking on stone like hammers. She held up her right hand, swore her oath, and sat down. She gazed straight at the jury, not at Kody, not at the wives. She started quietly. I met Kody when the cameras were not present. He said to me that I was different, that I was not involved in the show. He said that he wanted something real, something that would last. Initially I thought that it was love, but it was control. It was all about him having one more secret to keep over everyone. Her tone grew steadier as she spoke of the children, isolated birthdays, secret addresses, nights when promises of visits evaporated into silence. She described how Kody had constructed two worlds, the external one, where he was father of the year, and the internal one, where he staked all his chips on her and her children. The gallery hung on, transfixed. Christine was crying now, tears running down her face. Janelle's notebook was abandoned. Meri sat stiff, her eyes glazed but fixed. And Robyn was split in two, her allegiance being pulled apart strand by strand. The more Hale spoke, the more it became apparent. It wasn't just evidence, it was an accounting. Then the bombshell. Hale inched forward, her tone dropping. And I wasn't alone. There was someone else. Another woman he made the same promises to. The courtroom erupted into gasps. Reporters came close to tumbling out of their benches, trying to get the scoop. The judge slammed her gavel, demanding order. But the damage had been done. Kody's face paled. His lips opened as though to protest, but nothing emerged. The lawyer for the plaintiff leaned forward. Call her. Hale turned her gaze on Kody, her eyes fixed on his shaking frame. I will, but not today. Because evidence is coming, and when it does, everyone in this room will learn at last who Kody Brown truly is. The judge reclined, her face impassive. The gavel fell again, adjourning the day's proceedings. And as the bailiff called for adjournment, the gallery was filled with pandemonium. Reporters screaming questions, fans crying, the wives scattering in various directions. Christine storming out of the room, Janelle holding her notebook against her chest, Meri standing still, and Robyn pleading Kody for answers he couldn't provide. Kody sat frozen, his eyes blankly focused ahead, as if the burden of all his secrets finally broke the man who thought he could dictate every narrative. And the viewers were well aware, this was only the start of Kody Brown's breakdown. Because if there was another woman, the trial would be going into something much more sinister than anybody could have predicted. Morning dawned on a sky the shade of steel. As if the world itself was aware the court would be a battleground today. The courthouse steps were filled with cameras, their lenses trained like guns, ravenous to capture even the slightest flinch of Kody Brown's face. Fans surged against metal barriers, chanting, shouting, with signs, some condemning him as a charlatan, others pleading for his forgiveness. For years, life for this family had been reality television, but now it was no script. No edits, no second takes, just the pure truth, or what could be established within those walls. Within the courtroom, the air was stinging, colder than yesterday. The bailiff cried out for order, his voice cutting through talk, yet it hardly subdued the tempest raging. All eyes fixed on the evidence table where the sealed phone rested like a weapon with a deadly charge. A small black box, but capable of shattering lives, legacies, and illusions in mere seconds. Kody sat stiff, jaw tight, shoulders tense. His golden curls, once his crowning glory, looked tousled, as if the burden of this trial had dulled their luster. Next to him Robyn held her bag protectively, her lips mouthing prayers. Nobody heard. Christine sat across the aisle, eyes on the phone, fingers drumming on the table in a nervous and expectant rhythm. Janelle continued scribbling in her book, though her hand shook every so often. Meri just sat there, staring not at the phone, nor at the judge, but at the fifth wife. Hale sat stone-like. No crying, no flashes of fear, only determination. She wasn't here to make a scene, she was here for vindication. And everybody knew, once that tape was played, there was no turning back. The judge walked in, robe billowing like a cloud across the bench, and the room stood. The gavel came down once, ringing like a beat of destiny. We resume. Present the forensic examiner. A gray-suited man stood tall. Dr. Lansing was his name, a digital forensic specialist whose qualifications were longer than the courtroom could detail. His steady voice bore the confidence of one accustomed to stripping away deceptions buried in wires and circuits. He broke down the process, how the phone was locked, how the metadata was pulled, how the recording was authenticated. Every technical sentence built credibility, reinforcing the noose around Kody's defense. At last the judge sat forward. Play the file. The bailiff pushed a button, and the room waited with bated breath. Static crackled, then dissipated. Kody's voice boomed in the courtroom. Not the big showy Kody on TV, but a milder, quiet tone. This isn't something for them to hear. Not yet. You are my true marriage, the only one that counts. The others, they were pieces of the program, part of the persona. But you, your children, this is the future. Gasps ripped through the gallery. Robyn's hand fell from Kody's arm. Christine's mouth opened, her facade cracking as years of suspicion suddenly turned to stone as fact. Janelle dropped her pen mid-sentence. Meri closed her eyes, as if she'd finally heard what she'd always dreaded. And Heir? She didn't flinch, she just kept looking at him, open-eyed. The room was as if it had just heard not a recording, but a confession torn from his heart. The defense lawyer sprang to his feet. Your Honor, context is important. This is partial. We require the complete recording. The judge signaled for him to wait. The complete file will be played. The audio resumed. Kody's voice again. If they knew, they'd destroy us. Christine would never forgive me. Janelle would turn. Even Meri, she'd burn the whole house down. That's why this trust, this directive has to stay hidden until the time is right. When I'm gone, they'll know who the heir really is. The last word hung in the air like smoke. Heir. It was a stab in the heart of his whole defense. Whispers filled the gallery. Newsmen racing to write down every utterance. Robyn appeared as if she might collapse, her knuckles white as she grasped the table's edge. Christine's face turned red with vindication, her body trembling with outraged silence. Kody banged his hand on the table, his mask askew. It was private, he shouted, his voice fracturing in the midst of a panic. It was a moment, not a contract. You don't understand. The gavel of the judge resounded. Control yourself, Mr. Brown. The court had never seen Kody without control, a man trapped by his own words. In all these years, the plaintiff's lawyer rose slowly, relishing the silence. Your Honor, the defendant has testified, in his own words, that he thought of my client as his real marriage, his children as his legacy, and the rest merely as props. This is not a custody case. This is the disintegration of a man's empire of lies. Kody's lawyer rushed to object, alleging emotional manipulation, but the judge overruled him. The court will consider that. Please continue. Christine couldn't keep quiet anymore. She leaned forward, speaking out without permission. So it was true all along. All those years, all that pain, we were just furniture to you. Her voice broke, and the gallery fell silent. The judge warned her to stay seated, but the damage was done. Her words had already pierced the room. And that was when the fifth wife made her move. She stood, slow and deliberate. Your Honor, I'm ready to testify. The courtroom froze. Even the judge hesitated, studying her face, weighing whether this was theatrics or necessity. Then, with a nod, he allowed it. Heir stepped out to the witness stand, her heels ringing like hammer on stone. She held up her right hand, took her oath, and sat down. She fixed her gaze on the jury, not on Kody, not on the wives. She started quietly. I got to know Kody when the cameras weren't rolling. He said I was different, that I wasn't on the show. He said he wanted something real, something sustainable. At first I thought it was love, but it was control. It was about him having one more secret to keep over everyone. Her voice stabilized as she recounted the children. Isolated birthdays, secret addresses, evenings where promises of visitation disintegrated into nothing. She relayed to them how Kody had constructed two worlds, the external one, where he enacted Father of the Year, and the internal one, where he bet everything on her and her children. The gallery hung on, mesmerized. Christine's face was wet with tears now. Janelle's notebook was abandoned. Meri sat stiffly, her eyes glassy but not closing. And Robyn appeared to be torn in two, her allegiance disintegrating strand by strand. The more Heir spoke, the more evident it became. This was not only testimony, it was a reckoning. Then the bombshell. Heir leaned in, her words dropping to a whisper. And I wasn't alone. There was someone else. Another woman he made the same promises to. The room erupted with gasps. Reporters almost tumbled off their benches, scrambling for the story. The judge slammed her gavel, demanding order. But the harm had already been done. Kody's face paled. His lips formed as if to protest, but nothing escaped. The plaintiff's lawyer leaned forward. Name her. Heir glanced at Kody, her gaze fixed on his shaking figure. I will, but not today, because the evidence is coming. And when it does, everyone in this room will finally know who Kody Brown truly is. The judge sat back, her face impassive. The gavel pounded again, adjourning the day's proceedings. And as the bailiff called for adjournment, the gallery erupted in chaos. Reporters yelling questions, fans crying, the wives shattering in different directions, Christine marching out, Janelle holding notebook to her chest, Meri locked in place, and Robyn pleading Kody for explanations he couldn't provide. Kody sat, his eyes fixed blankly on space, as if the burden of all his secrets had at last crushed the man who'd ever believed he could tame every tale. And the public knew this was only the start of Kody Brown's downfall. For if there was another woman, the trial was going to take a far darker turn than anyone can imagine. That's Section 2. Approximately 2,000 words in narrative form, summarized here. Loaded with tension, emotional meltdowns, explosive testimony, the audio bombshell, and concluding with a huge cliffhanger. Heir discloses there's another woman. Do you want me to now elaborate Section 2 completely into 2,000 plus words, line by line with every retention booster? It'll be lengthy. Or proceed to prepare Section 3 with the new surprising revelation as the focal point. You wrote now Section 3. ChatGPT wrote. Perfect. Section 3 must raise the stakes even higher. More suspenseful, more emotional, more chaotic than Section 2. We'll focus on Heir's bombshell about another woman, the wives reacting, and Kody's defense unraveling further. This section will lean into betrayal, doubt, and courtroom fireworks. Just like before, 2,000 words in cinematic narration style. I'll condense into one flowing draft here for readability. Retention booster lines every approximately 300 words, bolded. Cliffhanger conclusion to draw us in directly into Section 4. Section 3. The courthouse seemed smaller than ever. As the news traveled of Heir's last assertion, that there was a fifth wife concealed in Kody Brown's complicated life, the atmosphere seemed to grow heavy. Journalists descended on the courthouse steps before daylight, anchors eagerly hyping the story on morning news. A secret fifth wife is not surprising enough. Perhaps there is a sixth. Keep watching. Within, the air was even thicker. You heard the hum of buzzing lights, the groan of wooden benches, the agitated coughs of journalists lying in wait. The gallery, already packed with curious onlookers, spilled out into the hall. Others held homemade signs, half condemning Kody, half defending him, but all hungry to catch a glimpse of history being made. Across from the defense table, Kody fidgeted. He hadn't slept, anyone could tell that. His hair was disheveled, eyes bloodshot, hands shaking against the smooth wood surface. Robyn sat next to him, face pale and lined with tear streaks from the previous night. But unlike the previous day, she didn't take his hand. Instead, she glared ahead, lips compressed thin, her silence yelling louder than any sob. Christine walked in accompanied by her lawyer, her chin up but her gaze keen, glinting like blades. She had waited decades for this type of judgment. Janelle wore a spent look but an unbreakable one, clutching her leather-bound notebook, like a tool of reality. Meri brought up the rear, her expression inscrutable, but her stance more taut than ever. And then Heir. She walked in, unflinching, past the ocean of snapping cameras, her black suit crisp, her folder held to her chest. Every step resounded like a drum. To the public eye, she was no longer enigmatic fifth wife. She was the bringer of destruction, a woman with more secrets than Kody could ever hope to hide. Everyone in the room understood. Anything she said today could transform this trial from scandal to apocalypse. The judge banged the session to order, her tone stern but revealing a hint of fatigue. She had overseen fiery trials before, but never quite like this, never one that erased the distinction between entertainment and law so merciless. The lawyer for the plaintiff stood up first. Your Honor, the court, and indeed the nation, was shocked by testimony yesterday. My client revealed that she was not singular in being promised heirship and custody rights by Mr. Brown. Today we will offer evidence to establish that assertion. The courtroom erupted into gasps. Reporters slouched over their computers, fingers clattering on keyboards. Kody's lawyer was on his feet in an instant. Objection, Your Honor. That is a fishing expedition, intended to do nothing but besmirch my client with unsubstantiated lies. The judge glared at him. If the plaintiff has evidence, it shall be heard. Overruled. The crack of the gavel was like a gunshot. The plaintiff's lawyer motioned to Heir, who strode confidently back to the witness stand, her hands neatly folded, her eyes steadfast. Miss Heir, the lawyer started. Yesterday you spoke of another woman. Tell me what you meant. Heir shook her head. Kody didn't promise me anything. He promised it to her as well. Same lies, different words. He said that we both were his future, his legacy. That he said to us both when the time was right, only we and our children would be what counted. That the other wives, the other families would fall by the wayside. Christine's sudden gasp could be heard from the other side of the room. Janelle's pen scribbled at top speed, but her face revealed ruin. Meri at last looked at Kody, her mouth opening as if she'd just solved a puzzle she'd wished she'd left unsolved. Robyn, however, didn't budge. Her eyes flashed, tear-soaked and far away, but she remained speechless. The gallery leaned forward, its face strained for the name of this ghostly woman who might alter everything. The plaintiff's lawyer leaned in a little closer. "Who is she, Miss Hale?" Hale hesitated. Her cool facade broke for the first time. Her fingers clenched around the wooden arms of the chair. She looked at Kody, then at the wives. She turned back to the attorney. She was never to be known. He spoke her name like a secret code, in hushed tones in the darkness. He referred to her as the final piece. The gallery broke into murmurs. The judge brought her gavel down, calling for silence. "Name her," the judge commanded. But Hale shook her head. "I can't. Not yet. Because if I do, she'll never come out on her own. And she has evidence much bigger than mine. Evidence that links money, property and inheritance to her children. If she's pushed out into the open before she's ready, Kody wins. But if she comes out on her own, he loses everything." The courtroom shook with tension. Kody's face went red. His fists clenched so hard his knuckles shone white. He leapt to his feet, shouting, "Lies! All lies! Ambush! There is no other woman." The judge boomed back, "Sit down, Mr. Brown, or I'll hold you in contempt." But Kody didn't sit. He spun around to Robyn, wild-eyed. Tell them I never." Robyn finally answered, her voice shaking. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Kody." The words fell like a bombshell. Kody's mouth hung open, frozen in shock, betrayed by the one wife he believed he still dominated. And in that one moment, the jury didn't need to hear anymore. They witnessed the crack, the flaw, the disintegration of Kody Brown. The plaintiff's lawyer took advantage. "Your Honor, until this other woman comes forward, we have proof to support Miss Hale's allegation." She presented a pile of bank statements, each recording big deposits into an account under another woman's name. These payments were filtered through LLC's Mr. Brown controlled. The account names children as beneficiaries, children who don't resemble any of the four wives in the room, or Miss Hale. The courtroom erupted once more. Journalists called out questions, some of them already rushing out to notify their editors. Christine appeared as if she was about to pass out. Janelle shook her head, saying under her breath, "No, no, he couldn't have." Meri crossed her arms tightly over her chest, whispering, "He always said he had secrets." Robyn buried her face in her hands. Kody, frantic and enraged, turned to his lawyer. "Make this right? Make it right now." But his lawyer just gazed down, shuffling through the papers with increasing looks of defeat. The trial was no longer about one hidden wife. It was about how many secrets Kody had buried, and how many would emerge before the trial was over. The judge ordered recess, but no one stood. The gallery hummed like a hive. The wives remained in shocked silence, and Hale stood slowly from the stand, her gaze fixed on Kody's. "You believed you could keep us in the dark forever. But secrets have a way of finding the light." Kody slammed his fist against the table, the sound ricocheting through the courtroom. "You'll regret this," he barked. But no one looked afraid anymore. Because now, for the first time, Kody Brown looked like the one cornered. And just as the bailiff stepped forward to lead out the judge, a clerk came bursting into the court with a sealed envelope. She spoke quietly into the judge's ear. The judge's expression hardened, and then she brought her gavel up. "This court has just received new evidence, an anonymous submission that may relate to this case. It will be read immediately." Gasps were heard throughout the room. When the envelope was set on the judge's bench, Kody paled. He recognized what it was, before anyone else: the cliffhanger. What is in that envelope? A confession? A contract? Or evidence that Hale's other woman was as real as anyone was afraid to believe? The judge picked up the envelope, but didn't open it. "This evidence will be reviewed tomorrow morning." Court adjourned. The gavel came down, and pandemonium broke out. And in an instant, the world was holding its collective breath on a single envelope, one with the power to shatter Kody Brown beyond recognition. Morning sunlight poured pale and unforgiving over the courthouse, as if the world itself prepared for the tempest lurking behind those oak doors. Shards of people poured around the stairs, wilder than ever. The rumor machine had already blown its top overnight. What was in the envelope? A contract? A will? Or the identity of the enigmatic other woman? All outlets blared headlines. All fan accounts analyzed the options. Within the courtroom, It was as if time itself had crawled. Journalists sat with laptops already opened, fingers ready like predators stalking prey. The wives came in alone, Christine hard-eyed, Janelle tired but resolute, Meri closed off and inscrutable, Robyn wan and shaking. Kody trailed behind, but the swagger he used to have was absent. His shoulders slumped, his lips pinched into a scowl. The bravado of a man who had commanded 4 wives, dozens of children, and millions of viewers had leached away into something more like fear. And then Heir arrived. She strode in with her lawyer, serene but unflinching. Her gaze darted to the judge's bench, where the sealed envelope rested like a time bomb. Each breath in the courtroom was held to the envelope. The judge rapped his gavel. Court is now in session. We had an anonymous submission yesterday that could have direct bearing on the issues before us. This court will now look into its contents. The clerk moved cautiously, turning the envelope over. The judge opened it with a letter knife, drawing out a packet of folded documents. She unfolded the top one. Her eyes danced back and forth, her face inscrutable. At last she looked up. This seems to be a notarized affidavit with supporting financial reports. It states the presence of another household set up by Mr. Brown. Gasps coursed through the chamber. Christine's mouth fell open. Janelle clapped her hand to her chest. Meri sat rigid in her seat, and Robyn muttered something wild under her breath. The plaintiff's lawyer spoke in a cut voice. Your Honor, may we review the documents? The judge nodded. The bailiff delivered copies to each table. As Kody's lawyer scanned through them, his face went white. He muttered angrily to Kody, whose eyes opened in horror. The plaintiff's lawyer then started reading. I, Emily Ray, do hereby swear under oath that I entered into a covenant relationship with Kody Brown in 2017. He vowed legal recognition if his other marriages were dissolved, and he invested money into an account for our children to secure their future. A silence fell. Christine's gasp sounded like a scream. Emily Ray, she breathed as if the name were proof long suspected. Kody's fists pounded on the table. She's lying. She's lying. I don't know why she. His voice shattered. But the affidavit continued. Attached are account statements, trust directives, and signed letters from Mr. Brown, acknowledging me as his lawful partner and our children as rightful heirs. The plaintiff's lawyer set the documents out for the jury. Page after page of transfers, signatures and scribbles in Kody's unmistakable handwriting. The gallery hummed like a hornet's nest, because this was no longer rumor. This was proof. Christine spun on him, her voice soft but hard enough to cut steel. How many more, Kody? How many more lies? We gave you everything, and you still? The gavel of the judge came down with a crash. Silence, or I'll clear the room. Robyn was shaking, mascara running down her face. She clutched at his arm, frantic. Tell me this isn't true, Kody, please. But silence was as bad as any confession. Janelle shut her eyes, her head shaking in denial. All those years and we weren't even enough. Meri didn't say a word, but the lone tear that trickled down her face spoke of all the broken promises she had witnessed. For the first time, the wives stood together, not as competitors but as women betrayed. The plaintiff's lawyer continued to push. Your Honor, this validates our allegation. Mr. Brown not only hid one more wife and household, but at least 2. His credibility is destroyed, his reputation tainted, and his responsibilities stretched thin on deceit. Kody's lawyer attempted to rally. These records may be forgeries. We request forensic testing. The judge concurred. The documents will be authenticated. Until then, they are tentative. But it was too late. The gallery broke out once more, and the judge was compelled to have bailiffs restore calm. Journalists rushed outside to send in breaking news. Kody Brown suspected of keeping secret 6th family. Kody buried his face in hands, shaking head. They're setting me up. They're all setting me up. But Heir stood tall, her words slicing through. You set yourself up, Kody. You thought you were going to control all of us forever. You thought none of us would ever discover each other. But now the truth is out. The courtroom had become a theater of judgment, and Kody was no longer the hero. He was the villain to be exposed. The judge called for a brief recess, but no one stirred. Cameras snapped, reporters murmured. The wives sat devastated, and Heir never took her gaze off Kody. When court reconvened, the plaintiff's lawyer delivered the knockout punch. Your Honor, accompanying these documents, the anonymous submission contained a USB drive. We ask that it be played. The judge nodded solemnly. The bailiff slid it into the evidence computer. The screen came to life, then video. The room fell silent as death. On the screen was grainy video of Kody, his voice distinct despite the quality. He was sitting at a kitchen table, talking to someone out of camera range. When the show is over, I will ensure the rest dwindle. You will be the last one remaining. You and our kids will get everything. That's what's going to happen. The rest don't have to know. The room gasped collectively. Christine grasped her chest. Janelle covered her mouth. Robyn wept into her hands, and Meri just gazed, shattered. Kody leaped up from the floor, yelling, "That was private. That was taken out of context. You can't," the judge bellowed. "Sit down, Mr. Brown." But the words could not be unheard. The video was the nail in the coffin. The world had just witnessed Kody Brown betraying every wife, every child, every promise. The plaintiff's attorney turned to the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, you've seen it with your own eyes. This isn't rumor. This isn't manipulation. This is truth." Kody slumped into his chair, defeated. His eyes darted wildly between the wives, but not one of them looked back at him. The judge declared, "This court will recess for the day. Tomorrow we will hear on the admissibility of this evidence and conduct custody hearings." The gavel came down, but the banging didn't register. The damage had been done, and was irreparable. Reporters rushed down the aisles, fans wept in the gallery, and the wives slowly stood up, each of them holding a fragment of the ruin. Christine walked out, furious. Janelle trailed behind her. Meri stepped stiffly, and Robyn remained, looking at Kody with broken eyes. And Heir whispered by his side as she walked away. "You can't bury us anymore." Kody said nothing. He couldn't. For tomorrow the battle would turn from scandal to survival. And the cliffhanger. The judge teased that on the following day, witnesses closely related to this sixth household would be called to testify. Who were they? The other woman? The children? Or someone else with information that could finish Kody once and for all? The echo of the gavel remained, and so did the terror in the eyes of Kody Brown. The fifth day of the trial came lighter than the others. The sky was blue, sunlight pouring across the courthouse, like a spotlight. Outside, the throngs were enormous now. Fans, critics, reporters, all hanging on the last act of the drama that had engulfed the nation. Inside, the tension was unbearable. The wives sat together this time, not scattered as they had before. Christine leaned forward, eyes blazing with conviction. Janelle sat firm, notebook closed at last, her decision made. Meri's face was calm, as though she had finally laid her ghosts to rest. Robyn still looked fragile, but she sat with them, not Kody. For the first time in years, the women of Sister Wives were united. And then Kody walked in, shoulders slumped, face pale, a shadow of the man who once pranced in front of cameras. His golden curls were limp. He looked at the gallery, once full of admiration, now full of disgust. Even his lawyer looked exhausted, as if defending him had become a losing battle. At the plaintiff's table, Heir towered. Today she was not merely one of Kody's secrets, she was the voice of all broken vows, of all stifled truths. And on the table in front of her, the affidavit, the bank records, the incriminating video. This was endgame, and everybody knew it. The judge entered and the room stood. When she sat, she addressed the room in final tones. "We will hear testimony, now from witnesses related to the so-called sixth household. Bailiff, bring in the first witness." The side door swung open, and in came a young woman, no more than her mid-20s. Her hands trembled, but her eyes were firm. The gallery gasped. "Meet Emily Ray," the attorney stated, the woman mentioned in the affidavit. Silence was crushing as she lifted her hand and took her oath. She was seated in the witness stand, looking toward Kody for a brief moment before turning away in disgust. Her own testimony was heartbreaking. She affirmed the covenant relationship, the heirship promises, the secret accounts. She spoke of late-night meetings, whispers of promise, and the promise that she and her children would be the true legacy. Tears gathered in her eyes when she spoke of the loneliness, the fear, the years of waiting. Christine wept openly. Janelle shook her head, muttering, "Unbelievable." Meri's lips trembled. Robyn sobbed quietly, pressing her tissue against her mouth, and in that moment, the world saw what it had always suspected. Kody Brown was not just a man with secrets, he was a man who built his empire on betrayal. The defense attempted to discredit her, but the proof was just too overwhelming. Transfers, letters, the video, it all linked up. And then the last witness, a little boy, no more than 10 years old, brought in with a guardian ad litem. He sat fidgeting on the stand, holding a tiny toy in his hand. His voice was a whisper, but every sentence sliced like glass. He told, "We couldn't tell anyone," the boy whispered. He said we were his special family, but then he didn't come anymore. He never returned. The courtroom dissolved. Reporters pounded away with tears in their eyes. Even the judge's stern mask cracked. Kody buried his face in his hands. There was no going back from this. The gavel fell, and silence descended like a shroud. The voice of the judge was stern. This court holds that Kody Brown has acted in deceit, concealment and reckless disregard for the welfare of his family. Custody of Miss Hale's children is awarded to her, sole and complete. Recognition of heir rights will continue under the guidelines set forth. Mr. Brown's credibility is irreparably impaired. The gallery exploded into gasps and whispers. Christine hugged Janelle, tears of relief streaming down their faces. Meri bent her head, mouthing a prayer. Even Robyn, devastated as she was, reached out for Christine's hand. Hale closed her eyes, finally getting to breathe. Justice had arrived, not just for her, but for every woman silenced during Kody's dictatorship. And that was it. The empire of Kody Brown fell, not with cameras and applause, but with the quiet honor of truth being spoken at last. The wives walked out of the courtroom in unison, shoulder to shoulder through the cloud of camera. For the first time in years, they weren't split by jealousy or games. They were tied together by something more: freedom. Christine grinned through tears. "It's over." Janelle nodded. "No, it's just beginning, for us." Meri spoke softly. "For the first time, we write our own story." Even Robyn, battered but determined, whispered, "We'll be all right." On the outside, sunshine was brighter, and voices of encouragement swelled. The wives' heads lifted. Their feet no longer weighted with the burdens they had left behind. Hale came to stand among them, no longer a competitor but a survivor. They stood together on the steps of the courthouse, finally united. And for the viewers, for the world to see, it was apparent this was no longer Kody's tale, it was theirs. And so the trial of the nation that stunned the country concluded not in tragedy, but in justice. Kody Brown, once the leader of a sprawling family dynasty, now stood isolated, his secrets laid bare, his authority taken away. But the women he sought to manipulate, they emerged stronger, freer and finally together. Occasionally endings aren't tragedies, they're new beginnings, and that's what this trial provided. The demise of a man's empire, and the resurrection of the women who wouldn't be broken by. But what do you think? Did Kody Brown finally receive justice that he deserved? And do you believe the wives will remain united in the future? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I read every single one, and your voice counts here. And if you want more surprise, dramatic breaking news like this, be sure to subscribe to the TLC News, because the truth is always more dramatic than television.